All right, so now we're recording. I'm just gonna record right out the gate. I'm not even gonna write down what we're gonna do. Like most time, I figure you and I can shoot the breeze. So
that's enough stuff.
Oh, we got plenty. We got plenty. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Blacktop Banter, and now we have camera here, right? So here we are.
Upgrades around.
I know it. I know. There's beautiful HD camera. We're all right here. So we're actually at the war table, which this was at my house when I first started the podcast, and now it's here at the Wiscoat / Blacktop Banter office. So yeah, I mean, we've got plenty of stickers here on it. Scott actually put a sticker down on this side, so I'll send some pictures on Instagram and stuff, and we'll see it. But Scott and I go way back to US Seal Coaters group. When that first started, we were all kind of contributing and asking all kinds of questions way back then, and we've been friends then ever since. So we stay in contact a lot. We try to help each other out a lot, especially online, social media, opportunities, a lot of different things. And you know, this is our first kind of in like live guest, something that I would like to do a lot more often, obviously. But obviously, as we transition to somewhat of normalcy, hopefully this happens more often. Anybody that is in our industry or wants to be on the podcast that can contribute is more than welcome to come visit. And even if you don't want to contribute to the podcast and you want to just come say, hey, there's merch. We have a bar and grill right across the road. We can go eat lunch. We can do all that stuff. So that'll be the idea for, you know, if anybody wants to come and hang out and do whatever, you all are more than welcome to.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll get started. And why don't you introduce yourself first of all? Because I mean, all of us obviously know, you know, where you come from, who you are and stuff. But there's some listeners, we're getting a lot new listeners and a lot more people that follow that, hey, we might as well go ahead and introduce you to them too.
Yeah, there's the annual new wave of people trying to get into the industry, and they don't know any of us.
Yeah.
But my name is Scott Morse, and I operate Arch City Seal Coating in St. Louis, Missouri. And you know, I just want to start off. You try to share some credit there with me. I want to thank you first off, because you were the person that stepped up and answered most of my dumb first questions on how to do, what to do, stuff, that eventually grew into me starting kind of as a tribute to Blacktop Banter. I started doing Blacktop Tech Talk. You know, you seem to focus more on the people in the industry.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And my personality is always drawn more toward the technical side of things.
Yep. And
to try and help everybody that comes along every season trying to get into the industry with all their questions, I started Blacktop Tech Talk to do the how-to. Here are the basics. This will get you going.
Yeah.
And if you got questions after watching this,
go ahead and message you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, when you think about it, everybody has kind of, especially people that are in social media aspect of it, they've kind of personified, you know, their content towards kind of how they are as well. And for me, I always just love connecting and talking with people and talking shop. And I would, you know, we would get technical questions and different things in the groups. And kind of what your videos have done is literally take those posts where everybody has broke down kind of what they do and how they do. And then you describe in your videos the details of that and how to do it correctly. So most of the time when somebody asks me a question about a certain specific technical thing, rather than me answer it, most of the time I'll send them a link to one of your videos on Blacktop Tech Talk. And, you know, it works out well that way. Everybody has their strong suits and their goals and the things they want to do. One thing, as you can kind of see with Scott's sweater, is he's wearing an Echo sweater there. Last year, you seen me be part of the UAG group. Scott's taking that on himself this year as well, and probably is going to contribute a lot more than what even I contributed, just because he loves the tech stuff and loves making the videos and contributing in that way. So it's going to work out really good. And I'm just glad Echo is still kind of chipping away at that block. We would love to see Echo at MPE. I would love it.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Hands
For
down.
what they offer, there's no one in that space at
No.
MPE, and they would be a great selection for a bigger booth there.
Absolutely.
So if we could keep that going, that would work out great too. And it's a great company. You know, they're one of the companies that right away seen, especially from the green industry side, the community was going to come full force no matter what. So they might as well go ahead and take advantage of being part of that community as well. And we're starting to see that in our industry a little bit too, with some of the companies as well. So I think as that gets more common, and these companies see the benefit of working with influencers,
engaging their customers. And that was the thing that, you know, kind of sealed the deal for me to join the UAG group was
pun intended.
Yeah.
Pun intended. I got you.
But that, you know, Echo's genuinely interested, not just in making products or doing some innovation or, you know, obviously selling stuff. They're genuinely interested in the end user on the ground with their stuff in the hands. Does it work? Does it not work? What do you want?
Yeah. And you know,
that's a refreshing
it's a unique thing. It is because most of the time you'll get questions from manufacturers or companies that make products that we use, and they'll ask, well, how'd you like it? And you'll kind of say what it is. And like, oh, that's good. Echo asks like, well, when you use it on pavement and you had it at certain RPMs, did it act the way you wanted it to act, or what was the reaction? And then when you come back with it, they kind of take that into consideration when they're making their next round of products or what they're gearing towards.
They actually kind of seem to go the opposite way. Instead of, you know, some manufacturers going, okay, what'd you like? You know, tell us what you liked about it. They're asking, what didn't you like? What didn't work? What's wrong with it that we can fix? Yeah.
So I mean, it's great that that they're still chipping away. Hopefully we get some more guys in there on the UAG and it keeps going that way. You know, I would love to work with them again here sometime coming up and we left that door open, which is fantastic because they really like to support whatever you want to do as an influencer. And you know, you don't always get that from companies that influencers work with. So that's really, really good. But less about Echo and more about Arch City Seal Coating. So kind of tell everybody, I know some people have seen us do videos and different things before where we've contributed different things. And I know I've had you tell a story a couple of times, but tell us about Arch City and how it got started.
Arch City got started. This will be our 7th season. So that would have made it 2015.
Okay.
But it really got started when I was in college.
Okay.
My good friend James, who was my roommate, had a truck and a trailer and a tank, and he was out there during the summer doing driveways, you know, for money, you know, just to, you know, for income, so that, you know, he'd pay his bills up and he'd take the winter off and focus on going to college and and wash, rinse, repeat. And it was a really
you're all right. Mine's on as well. So
and it really worked out well. And he got, you know, started getting a couple of bigger jobs. It's like, hey, you want to jump in on this? Heck yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So I started doing it, and, you know, damn if it just doesn't kind of get in your blood a little bit. He eventually, you know, got married and had a kid and moved off and finished school. And, you know, I went and did my thing. And moved back to St. Louis many years later and married my current wife, Nina, and her dad is a contractor.
Okay.
And when I moved back, he started throwing out ideas, you know, hey, you know, you want to start something, you want to do business, you know, let's have a little family meeting here and talk about different ideas, you know, maybe take over my company. He's mostly an electrician, and logistically that didn't really work out for me, because while I do understand how to work electrical stuff, to go through a whole other apprenticeship, to get to my journeyman, to get my license, and the timeline just isn't practical.
Right.
So I was like, well, you know, I did this asphalt stuff in college and I really kind of liked it. And, you know, what do you think about that? And he said, write up a business plan, bring me a business plan, show me it works, and I'll help invest and get you started, and we'll do it.
Okay.
And did all that, and he was like, yeah, the numbers are there, let's do it.
Huh.
So he fronted us a little bit of money, and I bought a used tank from Mike Sanders up near Milwaukee.
Oh yeah, he's a friend of the podcast. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, super good guy. He was another guy that answered a ton of my questions.
Yes, sir. That's a wealth of knowledge, that guy is.
So he sold me my first tank, which I still have and still use.
Really?
Poly 225.
Oh, it's poly? And it's still going.
Yep.
Wow.
The only modification I had to do to it was I had to cut the lid because it had the weird little screw top lid.
Yeah.
I cut the lid out and put a steel manway
on top of it.
Okay. So I could actually get in there and clean it out.
I got you.
So I actually climb into the 225-gallon tank and scrape that thing out.
Okay.
But the fact that I can do that, the tank keeps going.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, every season it's like, well, as soon as the tank finally starts to leak or finally cracks or whatever, I'll go out and I'll get a legit tank. And it just never happens.
Yeah.
It just keeps going. So we run it. And since we mostly do probably 90% residential,
it's more than
200
enough.
gallons is fine.
Yeah.
You can't really put down 200 gallons more than that by hand with one or two people in a day.
No. So I got a few questions after all that run. What'd you go to college for?
Nursing.
Really?
Yep. I was a nursing major. At that point in time, I wanted to become a flight nurse.
Really?
Yep.
Man.
And join the Coast Guard.
I can't believe I've never asked you that question before.
I wanted to be a flight nurse on helicopters for the Coast Guard.
That's crazy. Then the other thing where you're talking about seal coating, like getting ingrained in you, what happens is you don't really think about it at the time, but you're learning a trade.
Yes.
So it's something that you learn to do that sure other people can do, but can they do it really, really well? That's the separator, right? So you talk about an electrician. I'm sure I could wire an outlet in, but trust me, you don't want me to, and have it be reliable. Same thing with building a coffee table. I could do it. There's some 2x4s and plywood in the back out here, but it's not going to be the one that you want, right? So when it comes to seal coating, when we first started the US Seal Coaters Group, you were really geeking out. Like you were asking questions that I probably should have been asking that I didn't yet. Yeah. And then it got to be about technique and then about prep and everything else. And, you took information from me, took information from everybody else in the group, Saunders and some of those guys from early on. It really becomes a trade.
And that's actually one of my goals when I came into it all those years ago. It was always just a couple of guys in a tank. You do some driveways, make a little pocket money, and you move on. And when I came back, it still kind of had that chaotic feel to it, where it was just a bunch of guys doing kind of whatever. There was no standards. There's no.
Yeah, it just is what it is. It's a simple, hey, make it black.
And I've spent the last 25 years now as a master BMW mechanic.
Yeah.
And it's pretty demanding. It's highly technical.
You don't have a choice with BMWs.
That's true. And, there's a lot of precision stuff going on.
Yeah. It's not like you can just fluff that one.
No. So that's my mindset for the last couple of decades.
Yep.
And I saw how the, asphalt maintenance industry was.
Yep.
And I desperately wanted to bring that together, so that we could start to kind of work to improve the trade. And I love that you use that word, because I've been trying to hammer that home for years now. It's not a job, it's not a whatever. Let's make this a legit trade that people want to get into, and can provide jobs and security for their families. And
absolutely,
and it has that potential.
Oh,
especially in the last few years, I've noticed a lot of tech is really falling into this industry.
Yeah, you look at the robotic maintenance vehicle.
Oh man, that was
machine.
Fascinating.
And then when you look at, when we talk about asphalt maintenance, I include striping in that as well, which everybody should. There's no area of asphalt maintenance that is technologically advanced so rapidly as the striping industry with auto layout and lasers and everything else. It's insane.
And I love it.
I bet you do.
I absolutely love it.
And same thing when we get talking about sealers now for the last few years with coal tar bans going on. Obviously, Canada, they still use oil-based sealers and things, but here in Wisconsin specifically, for sure, that's been a way of the past for a while.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to see more actual chemical breakdowns and specs that go into our sealers as well to try to get them to bond the best that they can.
Yeah.
Now that the harsher chemicals have been taken out.
So the last year or two now, we've got the new line that everybody's been coming out with, all the different sealer manufacturers, the new polymer sealers.
Yeah.
And that's some amazing stuff.
Yeah, there's some, and not even that, the additives as well.
Yep.
Now there's complete companies that specifically are only additive companies for additives and sealers and things too. And then
so now it's gotten to the point where you're either going to be a guy in a truck with a bucket, or you're going to be a legit
company. Yeah.
And you're going to have to stay up on the technology and the techniques and know what's going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going to get left behind.
You know, one area that I think that we all didn't see that was a big separator between those guys that are, you know, just out making blacktop black and the guys that had larger, bigger companies was the fact that they were businessmen.
Yes.
I was not that for the good first 10 years. I was just trying to pay bills and make blacktop black. And it wasn't until, I started seeing that there was a difference. And not only that, seeing that there was a potential for somebody to go ahead and build a bigger company than what they thought. We here in Wisconsin have Farner Asphalt, which Jerry Farner owned, and it's huge. Like it's huge. It's statewide. And all they did was seal coat, crack fill, and patch forever. And then they started doing a little bit of tar and chip and stuff. Now they've got bought out and those kinds of things. But the separator wasn't the fact that he was the best at making blacktop black. The separator was the fact that he knew how to efficiently do it really, really well. And not only that, he knew the ins and outs of running a business and growing a business really well. So, once we educated ourselves on how to do this trade very, very well, all of a sudden I was able to see, holy crap, I'm going to have to take a whole new education and figure out how to be a businessman and grow a business, have employees,
but that was
scale.
The approach that I took was to do this at the highest level that I possibly could, and deliver that to every customer every time without fail, without excuse.
And I think that kind of the sticker you put on here for your production company,
for the music fun.
Yes, but also music is demanding as well, and learning to play music really well is demanding as well. So when you have that kind of background already, which seems to be just in your DNA, the technical aspect of everything, it helps you realize the right way to do stuff really, really quick. And then also allows you to kind of be somewhat of a sponge with great retention. See, that's my thing is I might learn it, I might try it, and then I fail at it. And then I go back to my old ways. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it another shot and give it another run the way that it should be done. And, like I said, the first 10 years, I didn't give a crap about that. And then all of a sudden where you were saying, I want to do it to the best of my potential, all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't doing everything to my own potential. And I was like, okay, if somebody once told me when I got into this business, what one man does, so can another. And he was like, do you believe that? And back then I didn't believe that. Now I do believe that.
Oh, and you wind up bringing yourself up in the process.
You do. You
become a better person.
You do. And then all of a sudden you kind of becoming your own cheering section. You're like, dude, I really can do this. Like all of a sudden, like those jobs that you were like, dude, I wish I could get that job, when you drive by it. And then all of a sudden they call one day, you're like,
or you get the phone call and it's like, oh, that's impossible. There's no way I could get that done.
Yeah.
And you do it and you're like, okay, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But with like the music thing, with disaster area, providing support to, those kinds of musicians, there's a zero failure rate.
Oh yeah.
The show is going to happen.
Oh yeah.
The people are in their seats. The tickets are sold. Show's happening one way or another. And it's up to you to drag them out onto the stage and
make it go.
Make it happen.
what it reminds me of when you describe that is fresh blacktop or fresh concrete, and you're laying a line down from a striping machine, and you're like,
there's
no failure.
There's no more pressure
No.
than pulling that trigger
There's
for the
no
first line.
Yep.
Because everything else you do after that is based on that first little drip.
Yep. And then if it's off, you can't just get sealer and cover it up. You're gonna have to figure something else out. So when it comes to Arch City, and one more thing, because I said I wanted a few things. I want to tell a story real quick about a poly tank. I was following a poly tank one time, local. The guy wasn't local, but the tank was around here. So anyways, maybe we'll go look after the podcast. I'll show you. But it was out on the back roads. In the back roads of Wisconsin, there's some potholes that are big, man. And
it takes a while for the county to get out there.
It does. And a guy hit one. The poly tank was on a trailer. And I watched the seam in the middle of that poly tank go and crack open. And next thing I know, I started seeing sealer coming down the bed. So I back way off.
Yeah.
And then I just take a different route. You can literally follow that trail of sealer all the way down to where the agitator was, or the middle bar. It cracked from the top down. So if there was 50 gallons, it's on the road in a stream back around the back road, all the way
poor
down.
Guy.
I know, rough. But yeah, there's been some, like you said, your poly tank has lasted you a long time. I think it was
I bought it used. I think Michael had it. I think he said it was like 2 or 3 years old.
Crazy.
When he sold it to me. So that tank's 10 years old now.
That's crazy, man. I know North Star still makes some of them, some poly tanks. There's
I have no idea where he got it from.
It's hard telling.
There's like no name or brand on it. It's just a big tank with an agitator in it.
It's hard telling nowadays, man. You can get them from anywhere sometimes. And there's so much used equipment out there now too. We were just talking about that, you and I, about how the market has been crazy the last couple of years, and some guys aren't going to survive, and that equipment that they bought is going to be up for sale and stuff pretty soon. So, but also prices on stuff is stupid now. So it might be available, but might be expensive, and who knows? But yeah, when it comes to those certain types of tanks, obviously everybody wants a steel tank, but when you get a poly one for a decent price and it serves your purpose very, very well, you're able to do your job at a high level. We were just talking about this today. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah. We stick with a lot of products that we do and things because it works really well, and it has served us well.
Like I told you, I keep telling myself every season, it's like, well, this is probably the season that the tank's going to crack and start leaking, so I'm going to have to buy a new one, and that's fine. But it just kind of never happens.
Oh, that's good then.
But
don't switch it.
No, but it's it's hand agitated, which isn't always fun. But I do have a diaphragm pump on it, so I can properly recirculate my material and mix in the additives. And although since most of my stuff is residential, I don't really spray. I can having that pump. Mostly I just use it to dispense to the ground, so I don't have to lug buckets back and forth all day long. It's a labor saver.
The first 3 years I think we did the same thing. I had a 300 gallon hand agitated tank, and we did the same thing. It was steel, thankfully. I did the same thing. I actually had a Hi-Pro cast aluminum pump that had no business being on this thing. It was a 1-inch Hi-Pro pump. It's just stupid that it was even on there. And I didn't have a pressure valve. I only had a quarter turn valve. So I used that for the pressure, right? And I had a helper, and I was like, whatever you do, make sure that valve is never all the way shut. We ran the hose out. I sprayed 2 jobs with it. We ran the hose out, and I was at the top. It was started up. I opened my valve. Nothing happened. I turn around and look, and it's like somebody struck oil. The top of that Hi-Pro pump blew out, and I was like, I'm like, what did you do? He's like, it wasn't shut. And I look over and you could see it shut. When that valve blew, I spent the next 2 or 3 years doing them all by hand, because every dime had to go to the bills, to the material, to the fuel, and getting out to the job. Now, obviously, that's changed as we kept making great business choices and sacrificing what you have to sacrifice early on to build. But yeah, we did the same thing, man, just out of buckets. And I had a huge gum squeegee, which probably saved me a lot of sealer, but made a thin layer. But
my first setup was I had my old Ford Ranger.
Yep.
and I had a little 4x8 enclosed trailer that I shoved that poly tank into.
Okay.
Single axle.
Oh, it was enclosed trailer?
It was an enclosed trailer
okay.
because that was the trailer my father-in-law had that laying around and wasn't using it anymore.
So that's what we're going to use.
So that's what I used. And oh, that was miserable. That was so miserable trying to climb in there and mix it and fill it. And because, you know, the crank is on the other side from the drain. So I have to crawl over the tank and I'm, you know, literally mixing it, laying on top of it like an idiot. But there was no room even in there for a trash pump.
Oh yeah.
And I got through my first couple of jobs, had some money, bought myself a nice custom open trailer.
Yep.
From Easy Go, and it's beautiful. And then I bought a trash pump.
Yeah.
And trash pumps are perfectly fine, except for the fact that the material I get from my supplier, I buy the premix ready to use just because it's a time saver for me, and I'm all about managing my time.
That's what we have ready to use too.
But it had a 4-pound sand load. And I remember specifically asking, can I, you know, this is the material I'm using. Can I run this? And like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. And about 10 minutes,
the bearing blew up.
Yep. And I had a fountain in my customer's parking lot. Fortunately, it was on the section that I hadn't sealed yet.
Thank God.
So I shut it off, and it didn't get his big billboard sign or his fencing or any cars or his building. I was literally in the most remote part of his parking lot. So cleaned and recovered from that, bought my Yamada air pump, and it's been golden ever since.
But
those are some harsh lessons, man.
we did the same thing, had trash pump when I finally did, right? So I jumped to the trash pump, and I got really lucky. We bought a cast iron Red Lion, which was the top of the line one. And that first one lasted me all year. And then I started seeing a drip.
So that's more of like the banjo style than just like the Harbor Freight looking thing.
Well, yeah, and it's cast iron versus the cast aluminum, but it still had the kind of that same setup where the pump was on the inside there. But it leaked, and then I used it again the next year for about half the year, and then it just started leaking really bad. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to get another one. I bought another one, and I don't know what happened or what was different, or just the fact that the sealer had made a new seal in there or that next winter or whatever. But 2 weeks went by and the bearing blew out of that one. So then I took it back because it was under warranty still, got a new one. 2 days after that one, the bearing blew out again. And I was like, okay.
So there's been a design change.
There's been a design change. Something was up. What saved me, I think, is that at that point, I had just started US Seal Coaters group. I had posted a video about, the bearing going out. And of course, right away, you get all the people saying, you idiot, that's not even what you're supposed to be using, blah, 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 whatever. But if you wade through all that crap, they would say, this is what you need. You need a compressor that puts out so much CFM and this type of diaphragm pump, and you'll be fine.
Well, and to be fair, you can run a trash pump. And I know tons of guys starting out every year that start with a trash pump and a tote and just a lot of sweat equity.
But
what you can't do is put sand in a trash pump.
They tell you can. Most people tell you that you can.
I don't know. Maybe it's possible. I don't know anybody successfully running a real sand load with a trash pump. But the flip side of that is nearly all material manufacturers, if you look at their mix designs, sand's in it every time. There's some kind of aggregate in there. So
clay powder or fiber or whatever. Yeah. And I think it just the quality, has went down in the manufacturing process overall over the years when it comes to trash pumps, because it might say trash pump, might say water pump. I've never had good luck since that Red Lion, that first run with either of them, but I can remember all the old guys from back in the day saying, just a Red Lion, you'll be fine. Red Lion, you'll be fine. And not to knock Red Lion down, I'm sure there's still great pumps for top of the line, but for what we do, what we use the material for,
it wasn't working for me anymore.
Nothing's going to hold up like a diaphragm pump.
No,
But
no.
yeah, no, I've heard that product redesign. The best quote I ever heard was it was described as cost optimization.
Oh, really?
So we optimized that product for quality versus cost, and we went with cost.
Isn't that crazy? I bet you.
Yeah, we intentionally made it cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that, hopefully that doesn't come to seatbelts, or something like that. You never know.
Well, 25 years in the auto industry. Everything's cost optimized.
Speaking of being in the auto industry, sometimes you'll post videos from your I don't know how we want to call it, your day job, your main job. Yep. Some of those are really fun videos.
Yeah, it's amazing what people do to their cars or what their cars do to them.
Yeah.
And it's every time you open the hood, it's an adventure, and sometimes you get somebody staring back at you.
I've always wanted a BMW Z. The Z3s were my favorite right out the gate.
I had one for a number of years. They're tons of fun, and they're super cheap now. You can get them for not much.
But then I kind of was like, yeah, maybe I don't, because after I watch like a lot of your stuff and see some of your videos, it's like, dude, they are always so finicky, and there's always something. And it's not like I can pop that hood, take 2 bolts off, and then put something back on my end. I'm gonna have to take it to somebody like you. And
for the most part, yeah, the older ones are a little more user friendly. The new stuff is not at all.
No.
But yeah, the best piece of advice I give people when they start talking about cars and buying, a used car, whether it's going to be their main transportation or something fun, I just can't stress enough. Take it to a shop, take it to a dealer, somebody you trust, and ask them for pre-purchase inspection before you buy it, not after. After you buy it, you already own it, and somebody giving you a list of what's wrong, and a price tag to go along with it is heartbreaking, and I see it far too often. They'll charge you a couple hours of labor, so it'll cost you a couple $100. But more often than not, you either get a list of what's wrong with the car, so you can go back and negotiate with the seller,
the dealer,
and say, hey, I took it to my guy and he says all this stuff is wrong, but I still want the vehicle if we can
figure out
the numbers out. Or you can just go, well, there's no way this car is
forget
worth it.
that.
And anybody that won't let you take a car to your guy to have them look it over,
probably
you don't want it all.
Yeah, that's true, especially if they know anything about anything for BMWs.
And it's heartbreaking for me too to see somebody all excited, I've worked so hard, I've saved my money, and I've gotten the car of my dreams, and I tell them that it's probably the worst purchase they've ever made in their life.
Dude, some of those Beamers are people's dreams.
Yeah.
And it's like, crud. And not only that, like some of the older Beamers now are being super, super highly collectible too. So people are like, yeah, man, I want in on that too. And it could be a young kid. They don't have any idea what they're getting into when it comes to that realm. And besides that, it seems like you're pretty good at what you do, because the free time when you have go-karts and be able to spin around the shop too, and some of those videos.
You have to have a little team building once in a while.
That's true.
Just got to try to not, hit the.
That's true.
Hit the stuff.
So to get back onto what we do, because we could talk about that forever, I'm sure. And music-wise, I'm sure we could too. You told me a story here when you showed up today, and we were excited, and we were already kind of talking about, I took you around and kind of showed you our facility here, our 2 locations here in town, and some of the projects we did, different things. And I was telling you that I want to get a big blacktop pad so that I can take samples from every type of sealer manufacturer in the country, put them here, and I'll go out in the winter, sprinkle a little salt on them and put them underneath a tree and stuff like that, and see how they do. And you're like, oh, that's my driveway. So tell us about that. Like when you first did that foray, because I heard it, but I didn't want you to elaborate because I wanted to save it for this. That way I'm genuinely surprised when you do it.
So once I gave my father-in-law the business plan and he was on board and kind of green lighted the project, I started doing my research, just kind of like how I do with everything. I am. Yep. And I went to every distributor within a reasonable driving distance of where I lived. And I bought 5 gallons of every single sealer I could get my hands on, including the the stuff from the box home improvement stores.
Yep.
And
the latex.
Yep. And I cleared off the driveway, prepped it, cleaned it, made it as nice as I could. And I put a stripe of every single sealer on my driveway. Because I wanted to see what the good material was.
Right.
You know, what should I be running? And even at that point, I understood that, you know, it's a regional thing too. What one product might do in Washington State may not hold up for 5 minutes in Florida or the Northeast coast or even the Midwest, you know, with all the salt and snow and stuff that we deal with.
Plowing.
Yep. So I did that right at the end of the season in the fall.
Yeah.
And I just left them sit. I let it sit all winter, and, you know, we
did your thing.
Yeah, we drive
regular
out
use.
of it. You know, we've got, you know, between the in-laws and us, we've got like 9 vehicles and a camper and a boat. And so, I mean,
plenty of traffic.
Oh yeah, it's like a McDonald's sometimes. I mean, it's just constantly shuffling cars to get one truck out of the back to move something else and get a trailer out. And so I felt it was, you know, a pretty legit test.
Right.
And I walked out there in the spring and just kind of pulled everything off the driveway. So it was just nothing but the bare asphalt. And I just kind of looked down. I was like, well, that one held up the best. And then I balanced that. So I knew which sealers were my top 3 performers. And then I balanced that with how I was treated by the distributor.
Okay.
You know, how did they treat me when I walked in and just asked for 5 gallons?
Yep.
You know, because, you know, in my mind, you know, if they're not willing to take care of the little guy, and I'm going to be the little guy for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, if they're just, you know, and I actually did have one distributor in town like, no, I'm not selling you 5 gallons. Get out of here. I'm not wasting my time with you.
Really?
And well, that was real easy. You know,
yeah. Scratch
you're done
off the list. Yeah.
But I had people that actually sat down. It's like, okay, you need 5 gallons. And yeah, it was a bit of a fib, but basically I told them that I just had this little sidewalk, you know, on my property. And I just wanted to clean it up, and, you know, a couple of gallons is probably all it would take.
Yep.
And I paid attention to how they treated me.
Yep.
And did they ask me questions, or did they just pour me 5 random gallons out of the closest tank and send me on my way?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, you're just doing that. So, you know, you probably want to have a little bit of aggregate in there. So it's, you know, because it's a walking surface, so you don't slip and fall in the winter when there's, you know, ice and stuff. And that's how I wound up with the product that I'm using from the distributor that I have.
Wow. Huh.
And I've got that in one of my Blacktop Tech Talk episodes, that same story.
Yep.
And that's it's kind of like a pre-purchase inspection on your car. I recommend that same thing to everybody getting into the industry, because some people are chasing, you know, a specific brand because they think it's, you know, Chevy or Ford or Dodge or whatever is, you know, they're a Chevy family. But that's not always the case. You really do need to do a little bit of research, see what material works the best in your area, and then see how that, you know, distributor is going to treat you. Because if you can't get a consistent product, or if they're not willing to provide technical support to you and answer your questions when you're in a jam or you're trying to solve a specific problem,
you're going to be on your own. Yeah.
And that's a horrible place to be.
Oh, it's a terrible feeling. And we're pretty lucky. Everyone's always heard me say it 10,000 times, but I believe we probably have the best Seal Master franchise in America here with the Pekowski family. And from the get-go, Jay, the owner, when I was only using 3,000 gallons a year, 4,000 gallons a year, whatever, starting out, he made me feel like I had the potential to be big, right? Or to use a lot of gallons. And obviously that was in his best interest, but also he genuinely believes that. I think he believes that with anybody. He wants them to be successful in whatever they can do. You know, so there's been times where it's been crazy temperatures in the summer, and we would get a load from the depot in Madison, their depot that Seal Master owned. I'd be like, Jay, I'm like, man, I said, you know, they would recommend how heavy it was, if we could add water and not add water. And then there'd be a time where I would look at it and I'm like, man, I don't think I can add any. And I would tell the guy that was servicing, like, hey man, it looked a little light. Like I'm not going to add anything to it. I would get a call from Jay and he'd be like, we pulled a sample from that, did a viscosity test. You're right. We're going to go ahead and bring that back, add what we need to add to it and bring back a good load right there for you. And he was like, in that load, don't even worry about, whatever. So to get that kind of support from a supplier when you're a little guy, all of a sudden, there's a lot of people that have came here to say, hey, we make a great product. We'd really like you to switch and try. We'll give you a bulk tank, and all you got to do is distribute a little bit, and you can use our sealer and everything else. And we wanted a bulk tank forever. We just couldn't justify it. We don't have the density to justify it, or didn't. But now with our reach, we do. But when it was really nice when people would stop by and promise us that this product was the best one, and then I would get a chance to use a little bit of it at the beginning of every year. And I was like,
on the pavement.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Some of it was really hard to work with. Yeah. Some of it didn't do what we wanted it to do. And I would always go back to what we use, which is Sealmaster PMM steel here at Wiscote for now. And not only was it a great product and I had support, Jay at the beginning at Sealmaster said, Marvin, I can lease you a tank. He's like, and whatnot, but only my sealer can go in it. He's like, so
fair enough.
Right. He's like, so get to where you can buy your own tank. That way, if you and I have trouble down the line, or you don't like the sealer or something happens, you're not on my leash for that sealer. He's like, you can go buy from whoever you want, wherever you want. Yeah. And we, like I said, we still get calls from everywhere. We do own our own bulk tank now. I heeded Jay's own advice. We could buy sealer from whoever, but we don't. We still buy from Sealmaster right here. And I think that, to your point, how you're treated, it depends on where you want to frequent. When we're done with this podcast, we're going to go across the road here to Trader's Bar and Grill.
Nice.
It's really convenient right here. We have a couple here in town, but it's right there. Always been treated good. Food's good. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I wound up with where I'm at. I use material from McConnell and Associates in St. Louis. They're a distributor for Star Sealer products. Mm-hmm. And I use a blend of coal tar and Triton. Okay. But with everything going on this year, I'm probably going to make the full switch all the way to Triton, because
who knows?
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is this year.
But the day I walked in there, getting samples, Kenny and Alice, who just retired, I'm gonna miss her so much. Hi Alice, love you. Hope you actually see this. But then again, you're retired, so I hope you don't.
Right.
They treated me like family.
Yeah.
Like I walked in there and they were like, hey, what can we do for you? And I gave them my little story, and they're like, oh, come on, let's talk about this. And they had little sample charts out there of the sealer, and do you need a brush? Do you need something?
Yep.
And they answered my endless questions, and it was just like no big deal, and handed me a popsicle, and they're like, hey, it's a hot day here.
We'll see you next time. Yeah.
And let us know if you need anything else. Like they would never see me again because I'm just some guy doing a little patch of a sidewalk.
Yeah. And that's what it takes, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
the material that I got from them outperformed everything else that I tested. Mm-hmm. And the customer service was, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. I was talking to Jay earlier this year. We had a similar experience. Honestly, when I first got to know those guys, I would consider his two boys, Max and Jack, good friends of mine. When I first got to know them, they treated me kind of that same way, kind of come in as family. And they're the very first times I went to NPE, Jay was there with the boys, and they would take me to dinner and like showed me, hey, Marvin, this is this guy, this is that guy, this is this guy. And it's that same feeling of you feel like family. And honestly, that kind of reflected onto me as I grew Wiscote, that I wanted to treat my customers that same way. So when their pavement is there, and I tell our guys when we get out there, and I think this is maybe what separates us from everybody else around here, is that we treat it when we're out there like it would be our pavement. So those corners that if it was ours where you might skimp and not clean the dirt as much, we don't do that. We want to make sure that it's clean because we're treating it like it's ours.
Cool.
The very worst feeling you can have is to come back, think that you did a great job, and then them call you and be like, hey man, something messed up here. And it does happen. I mean, we don't live in an absolutely foolproof industry,
But that's the goal every time.
but it is the goal. And if not, we want them to call us because we want to still treat it like it's our pavement. We want to go back and take care of whatever it is.
Every job I'm on is the most important job in the world at that moment.
Yes, you're only as good as your last work.
Yep.
And for me, that I want that to be the best example that we can. Now, I took you on a tour here, right, of some projects we did. And I know, and it's been told to me by even Jay and those guys, that when it's underneath trees and things like that, and there's shade and there's stuff, we have to take certain precautions and try our best and be transparent with the customer. And for your distributor to tell you to be transparent with the customer that there could be problems with that means that they don't want the fault to go on them. They don't want the fault to go on you. Obviously, we have plenty of work here. If somebody doesn't want us to do it underneath trees because we've been transparent and told them that it could flake or whatever, then we don't want to do the work for them. Same thing. We wouldn't want that if it was our driveway. But also we know the benefits of seal coating. I would hope that everybody at least seal coats one time on their pavement, no matter what. But we've had times where we've done it underneath trees, been fantastic. And then we've had it on another time where we've been underneath trees, and we've had to go back and take care of some spots that flaked up or whatever. And it happens. We tell them that that's going to happen. And that's all you really have to do is just care as much as you would hope that somebody would care about you in that instance as well. And next thing you know, there's still customers that stick with you, even though they know that there's faults on their driveway. I've actually had customers cut down their trees because the sealer won't stay. So they'll cut down the trees,
get rid of the shade,
get rid of the issues, so they don't have to deal with it at all anymore along the edge.
Dedicated.
So to me, it's like, okay.
Well, if they're willing to go that far, I should meet that
statement. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's just that example set by your distributor and my distributor bleeds onto our business, to where we want to make sure that we're doing that same thing for ours. Our Seal Master franchise here is a successful business. And I got to believe that if they weren't as transparent, as caring as they are, it wouldn't be as successful. And I think that's true with us too here as well. I mean, we work plenty, we make plenty of money here at Westcoat, to where we don't, it's not, hey, we want to seal coat your driveway no matter what. Obviously we want to
a lot,
right? And there's plenty
simply because I get there to do an inspection and measurement, and I do that for every single job without exception. And the condition is just so bad. I tell them it's not worth it. You're better off saving this money. What's sitting here is probably going to last you another 2-3 years. So you've got a couple of years to plan and budget and save. But you've reached the end of the service life for this surface. And it's done. And anything I do
on the surface
before that is 100% cosmetic. There's not, it's not restorative. It's not a repair.
You're not protecting anything at that point.
This is just cosmetic. It's just going to make it look pretty until you get
something figured out.
And sometimes that's all they want.
It is,
as long as they understand it.
It is. Sometimes it is all they want, and you'll get some. I don't want to kick back a little bit online. Sometimes, we try to show all of our work that we can. And I showed a video the other day of one that was very, very rough, but in the shade, it wasn't as rough. And that mainly was what the video about. But I got a comment saying, well, what do you recommend they do here? And, or did you still seal coat it? We did price it out for seal coating still. It was at the end of its service life. The sealer did nothing to help the pavement at all besides make it look good. But they're listing the home here in a month. They wanted curb appeal. They want to look decent. I get it. I understand that. And then there's some people where they understand it's going to look rough, but they still want to be black and they still want to be cosmetic, which is great. But,
there's still just as many people that appreciate the honesty. They're like, oh, I had no idea, because they're not in the industry. They do whatever they do. They just see everybody else in the neighborhood getting it done. And they figure, oh, well, I haven't done it in a while. Let's get it done. And you break the news to them, and of course they're not very happy about it, but they appreciate that you just didn't make it black and take the check and give them taillights. And
I think that we had an estimate here a couple of weeks ago,
And the lady's like, oh, I got another estimate already. I want you to come bid it. And I got there, and it looked like it had been installed with cold mix in the 80s. And man, it was like,
it's just done.
It was done. It was toast. And there was spots that were very thin that we would have had to patch.
Base is gone. It's not stable anymore.
So I recommended that they don't do anything. They
Yeah.
save their money and then plan on paving in the future. She's like, well, the other estimate, they said they were going to take a plate compactor, beat those ruffled spots down so that it's level again, and then seal coat over the top of it, and we'll be fine. And I was just like, lady, I'm not going to do that. I'd never heard of that. I don't recommend doing that. So, we definitely won't do that. If you want, I can patch those holes for you, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's X amount of dollars. I would suggest probably doing that and plan within the next 3 or 4 years on repaving it here at some point. And literally the email says, we really appreciate your honesty with all this. And what I do, that was the first bid of the day, went on and bid 8 more jobs. So I mean, it's that one job isn't going to kill us here at this point.
No.
And honestly,
you lost that job, but 5 years down the road,
when she paves, a
couple years after that, you'll
Here
be
we
getting
are.
that call.
Yeah.
I would rather have
that
10 loyal customers that love the work I do for the next 50 years than 50 customers for 1 year and burn every bridge along the way.
You know what I do? When I buy something on Amazon, I always check to see if there's 5-star reviews.
Sure.
And then sometimes there's like 4.5 stars. And I never go and read all the positive reviews. What I do is find out what the 1 or 2 negative ones were, go down and
did
read
the
those.
company reply?
Right.
Did they say, so sorry that happened to you, please contact us?
Yeah.
But if there's a bunch of complaints and there's nothing but crickets in the reply section,
well, and that's the thing is that
move on.
you could have 500 good reviews and have 2 awful reviews where they're like, well, they did our driveway and it wasn't even repairable. They didn't tell us that. And here it's all gone. This peeled up, that did that, whatever. Dude, you don't want that on especially on social media nowadays and on your review page. You don't want any of that jazz. What you'd rather have is that same lady saying, we tried to get them to do it. They wouldn't do it because it was beyond repair. It saved us a lot of money and put us towards our next one. We would highly recommend them and look forward to doing it in the future. So it's not always about the money, because that review itself, I would pay $100 for that review at any time, to have that added to it. So I think the hard pill to swallow, especially when, like I said, I did the same thing for 10 years. The hard pill to swallow was realizing that it's a slow gain in this industry. You have to meticulously do everything right for a long time. And then the fact that you stick around and stay around actually becomes your calling card.
And then one day you turn around and you're the guy.
Yeah, one day you turn around and you're the guy. And I think that for me, the same way that your distributor, when you were just starting out, treated you like family, I think from me doing the social media and the podcast and the videos and the groups and stuff starting on, I realized that at some time there were going to be people that were in better markets than me that I was able to mentor that would pass me. And then when they passed me, I was going to be able to use them as a mentor again back to me and to help me grow as well. And I think that's the tick. Hopefully, I hope one of those kids buys Wiscoat out one day. Or
there's enough work out there. And my goal is more, I genuinely love the industry. I love the trade. I think it's so full of opportunity. There's so much work out there.
Yeah.
I just want to help elevate it and make it a better place and bring more people more opportunities. And I can't imagine that you would disagree with me on this statement, because I've never had anybody argue against it. If every time my phone rang and I gave a bid on that project and I got every single job, I couldn't buy enough material, equipment, or train enough people to do it all.
Yeah.
So why fight over? There's no competition. There really isn't.
No,
because there's so much work out there,
and then
you can't possibly do it.
No, and then
so why not
fight?
Why not take that energy and just try and make the trade and the industry a better place?
Yeah, and I think that honestly, that's what this will be. We're closing in on 10 years of social media
asphalt maintenance industry community. And now we have pavers, stripers, everybody else is in that community as well.
Yeah, there's a corner for everybody out there.
Yeah. But there's a mentality of this is a legit trade, like we were talking about. Then there is separators that separate guys that do it very, very cheap from the guys that are expensive. And the fact that we've all been able to showcase our work and show why we are more valuable money wise too than other companies has actually elevated. Yeah. And I think it's actually elevated what the majority of us that are in the asphalt industry side ask per square foot or per square yard or whatever however you measure your thing. And there's a general appreciation by all of us and an understanding that because we have all made this community better, it's allowed us to create more value for ourselves, which obviously everybody loves. Because
we are skilled tradesmen.
We are skilled tradesmen.
And that has worth, that has value.
Yeah. And we've been able to show it off.
This isn't something that everyone can do. And you see that every fall with guys who, they gave it a hell of a shot for a season or two.
Yep.
And it's just not the trade for them. And the equipment goes up on the block.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, that breaks my heart a little bit sometimes to see it, because I know at some point that was somebody's dream and they put what they had into it. Yeah.
And sometimes there's guys that, try it, fail. And then they realize that it, like we were talking about, it literally has become our lifestyle. Like you love this industry because it's our home. Like it's our lifestyle. It's what we're interested in. And it's what we do.
And we've got friends. I mean, we've both got.
I couldn't imagine not doing this.
I can hit redial on half a dozen people in my phone, and they'll answer any time of the day.
Oh yeah. And I think
because they know if I'm calling at 3 a.m, I'm in trouble and I need help.
Yeah. And I think that
and it goes both ways. If my phone rings in the middle of the night and I see it's one of the guys in my area that I've been helping to mentor in the last few years, I know they're in trouble.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you would just hope that would be reciprocated as well, So I think that the general idea that we're elevating the community, everybody should. And now with our social medias that we're starting to get support from Echo and, we're getting some from 800 Pavement Network, Titan, Stencil Plus.
Oh, Jeff is amazing.
He's nonstop support.
I've given him some ridiculous stencil requests. He made a custom stencil for me and delivered it on a deadline that was impossible.
Yeah.
For a local event that was doing an anniversary show of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Get out.
And he made me on like 24 hours notice and on my doorstep.
There it was.
The Rocky Horror lips.
That's
in
crazy.
A 3-color stencil.
Dang. Yeah, and that's the kind of support, when you.
And he was just like,
there you go.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Here's the proof. Does that work for you?
Yeah, great. That works.
It's getting cut right now.
So then you got guys like Jeff that support what we do. You got Echo that has supported what we do. 800 Pavement Network is jumping on. Liberty Supply has always been there. Now we're starting to see the value of those companies have risen to the cream of the crop because they've been transparent with us. We've been able to say, yeah, that's what we use and it works. When I was at World of Asphalt this last time, bigger companies, I'll say Jamie from Dynapack is like, we want to work with you guys. We want to collaborate. We want to do things. And for us, that's like, all right, man, now we're starting to get somewhere. Like we've been pounding this door for a while. The guys that we're in front of and that follow all our content, your content, my content, and the content of all of our friends, whether it's Chris Love or Tom Esso or whether it's Charlie Baker's memes or Jim Panzenhagen's great striping advice. I mean,
oh man, he is just
unreal. They start to see all that stuff now, so they're part of the community as well. They're in the groups, they're in there as well with us, so everyone's starting to see the value of it. And finally you can start to feel that the mentality in the community is
shifting. It's
finally shifting to where, hey man, this is a legit thing.
There's not as many trolls out there and questions. When somebody new comes in and asks a question, like you said, when we first got into it and discovered the groups on Facebook, I would ask a question and the first thing would be like 50 guys coming in and hammering me, saying, well, if you don't know the answer to the question, you shouldn't be doing this at all. And I hate that one the worst.
Yeah.
You
You don't even see that hardly anymore now.
No,
They
people are
know.
jumping right in and saying, hey, no, this is what you need to do.
Yeah. And you'll
And if
get.
you got any questions, my phone number's on my page, friend me and just give me a call.
Yeah. Yeah. And
they're total strangers halfway across the country,
But
or even more to the point, they're
right
2
down the
miles
road.
down the street.
Yeah. I think that it's literally, this is cliche probably to say, but I think that it's adapted a pay it forward mentality where somebody probably helped them at some point, or they watch one of our videos at some point.
It's
like,
a beautiful
this guy helped
culture
out.
shift to see.
Yeah, it is. And we've been there at the beginning of it, and now we're here in the midst of it. I have really high hopes for all of us in this industry for the rest of the future. And, before I get too far off my point, that, you have guys that, like you said, it breaks your heart because they're at the end of the season, they're selling their stuff. What they seen and what they got interested in right away was a quick dollar. And then
those are the guys that
didn't make that transition of, I need to sacrifice, reinvest so we can survive another year. So
I'll tell you this, and I don't tell this to many people, although I guess it'll be the universe now. This is my 7th season.
Yeah.
I have yet to this day to take a paycheck.
Yeah. Perfect.
Every single cent
has gone
right back into either paying off that initial investment or
buying
more better equipment, or paying the part-time guys that I have help me, paying them what they deserve.
I think
my main guy Kelvin is, man, he's a champion. He loves the work and he works his heart out. And last year, I don't know if he want this known or not, but I don't care. I asked him every the last couple of years we've been doing okay, and I've tried to give him a little bonus at the end of the year, like a little profit sharing. And I was like, let's do something different besides just a little extra in your last check for the season. Tell me something you want. You want a new laptop?
Right.
You want super mega PlayStation or whatever. And he's like, I really just love a little bass boat. I just want to go fishing in the off season. So he worked his heart out. And no, I didn't buy him a whole boat. But we kind of met him halfway. He found a nice used little bass boat down in Texas. And I split it with him. And now he's out there fishing his heart out.
That's perfect. That's, we got.
But he earned it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely earned it. And that was the least I could do for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I always talk to people when they ask about whether it's Cheeks or Charlie when he was here or whoever was here. And there's a camaraderie that's built when you're absolutely dying out there in the heat in the middle of the summer, and somebody is willing to go through it with you to the end of the day. And you're just war. It's war. And you're like, man, it's like, you literally get that feeling of
110.
If they're willing to put up with that for me, I can do a little bit.
110 heat index in St. Louis by all 3 rivers.
Oh, it's right here too.
90% humidity and 100% sun.
When you walk out of the house and you start sweating, you're like, oh, damn, this
is going
to be a bad one, man. But I hit a point after I had took some mentorship to where I had a good pad there where I was putting money in my pocket. And finally, after so long, those 2 years, the business stayed the same size. I wasn't able to take on employees. We didn't buy very much new equipment. And the realization hit that I couldn't keep putting it in my pocket if I was going to reach the goals I wanted to as a businessman as well. So you reel back a little bit, start reinvesting in the company, start reinvesting in people. And, these last few years, we've kept crushing better numbers and better numbers. I still take the same amount that I've taken forever. And, I had a really good book recommended to me by Daniel at Proline, by Larry Janeski. And it's the highest calling or higher calling. Don't quote me on it, I guess. I think it's highest calling.
We'll have to
but
that out.
It's the same thing. In the book, the guy tells him, the guy that he's mentoring, he's like, well, when do I make some money? He's like, oh, in a while. It's going to be a while.
And I've got that long game.
You realize that.
My goal for Arch City is to retire into it.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm still a mechanic. I've got a few years left on the deal I have with my employer.
Yep.
And my goal is by the end of my time with them, I can transition and just walk right through the front door.
And there you are,
and
creating revenue
and be okay.
Be okay. Yeah. And in the meantime, we're on a fun journey with people that we like.
Yeah.
Right. And we're having a good time doing it. It's not hurting. It's like it's perfect for that. There's a guy.
It's painful some days, you know.
It is painful.
50 something.
You're getting
I'm
up there.
feeling that.
Yeah. There's a a guy that really would love to hear your story, and I'm sure he'll listen, is a kid that's been calling me quite a bit. His name's Grant. He owns a company called Black Widow Seal Coating.
Okay.
Same thing. He's doing it by hand. He's actually got a North Star unit that's just gravity fed. And he was asking me, he's like, can you do this part-time and like graduate into doing it? And it's like, oh yeah, for sure. That phone's on. It'll just have to ring. So that's probably Grant right now calling and asking me, hey, is this going to work? Is that going to work? But one thing that we say that's attested to it is, one of our good friends, Warren Johnson, he's also, a big time supporter of us, always did everything. He's transitioned very, very well from the airport to this. And
I went and visited him a few years ago, and he gave me a tour of the place, and that was amazing.
So I mean, there's plenty of examples of guys that do it and do it really well. I think that you're in that perfect transition, like you said, doing that same thing, so that when it's time to walk out, the boat is docked. You're not trying to jump at the dock
my plan is to do it like Pirates of the Caribbean and be Johnny Depp and just kind of step right off onto the dock as
the ship's going down.
The ship behind me sinks.
Yeah, well, you never know. It could be that way. You never know in this world nowadays. Yeah. But the one thing that I always, nowadays at least, I'm falling back on is that this journey that we're on with all of us together is a very unique thing. I seen it in the green industry back in 2016, when I just wanted to learn how to make some money in the winter. And I went to the GIE to meet Stanley Genetic and Keith Kalfas. And then I seen this community and I was like, why do we not have this?
Yes.
And I was on a mission to create it. And now we got another good chunk of years left in all of us. Yeah. It's a great, great fun time when we get to see each other at these events, when we get to talk online, when you get to come here and meet, and it feels like we didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
It's a very unique thing that not a lot of people get. And I appreciate that there were people like you early on that was like, okay, we'll be part of this. Okay, we'll do this.
We can do this.
We can do this. And, here we are. You're at Wiscote in Lone Rock. Now the population went from 750 to 751 for
a great little town. I love it up here in Wisconsin.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a good spot for us. This office, this is a great spot. I don't know that it's our ending spot. I'd like to have a bigger one here that hopefully everybody gets to come back to. But for now, the door's open for everybody to come on, be part of it. I would love to see people come here and be excited and walk away with some Wiscote stuff or Blacktop Banter stuff. Take a tour here of the 2 blocks and see what we got going on. I'm appreciative just as much as our industry has kind of taken us in and created a community where we have a place to be. Lone Rock has done that for Wiscote as well. So I think it's serendipitous that it's worked out that way. So, one thing that I want to ask you before we sign off,
all right,
is you have tons of technical advice, all kinds of instruction. You've remember more from all the groups than I would probably ever remember. But when it comes to advice, for somebody who is looking for, I don't think you give yourself enough credit. 7 years is a long time to keep doing this and be at it and keep doing it.
Yeah.
What is the secret to that kind of longevity? Like, what would the one thing that you would say is the separator from people that that have longevity versus people that are hanging it up after 6 months?
You have to have a plan. That's just it. You have to have a plan for as much success as you want out of life. And it's not even just asphalt. You have to have a plan, whether it's a plan for lunch or, grocery shopping for next week or, vacation next year or 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You have to have some kind of a direction, some kind of a plan on how you want to achieve your goals. You just can't say, well, I won $1 million. Well, lottery you know, Powerball is a really lousy plan to get rich.
Yeah.
It really is. So if you want to be a millionaire, or you want to be a rock star, or you want to be an asphalt guy, you have to have a plan on, first off, what is your actual goal? Be, you know, a specific goal, and think of what it's going to take to get there.
Cool. Can't ask for much more than that, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of advice. All right. There it is, guys. So first ever live one. Scott, thank you
so
very
much.
much, my friend. No worries. No worries. All right. So for myself and Scott from Arch City, we want you to seal it, pave it, stripe it, kill it.
Kill it.
Peace.